This is Halsted Street. I'm going to play the piece down for you once, and then we're going to take it apart. I'm going to show you how to practice it. Okay? Here it is. 1, 2, Okay, so it is a fast piece. We're going to play it slower than that, but I did want to play it up to full speed because eventually you want to work it up there, and if you play the piece really slow, say you're going to go it's okay to do that to get the fingerings, you know, to get it clean and everything, but ultimately what I find hangs up people when they're practicing this thing is articulation, and in order to get this, there's really no substitute for actually playing it really fast. Okay, so it's okay to slow it down to get the fingerings together, but you want to work it up, or at least practice a portion of it where you're going to work on the tonguing. Okay, so we're going to get into that. First, I'm going to talk about the piece. Let's start with the first 3 notes. Very important. Okay, and it starts on the upbeat of 3, so I'm going to start by tonguing that note. We're going to slur to beat 4, so we've got a G, a B, and a C, okay? Ta, ta, okay? And notice I'm giving a little bit of an accent to that final note, okay? Without that accent, it's short, but it doesn't feel like it's kind of moving forward. So that's a big part of it. So it's not just the articulation that's very important, it's also dynamics. Okay? Do that again. 1, 2, 1, 2. And you can loop this. This is a nice exercise. Go 1, 2. And see if you can get them very consistent. That'd be really good for your articulation. Now, if you like, you can also take this, just this little fraction of it, this little section, the 3 notes, as a separate exercise. Put them in 12 keys. This is something I've done with a lot of my students, and it's gotten really good results because it's doing a lot of things at once for you. We're doing the articulation, we're doing the accent on the final note, so we're doing dynamics, and then if you put it in the different keys and we run it through the cycle, you're really doing some great ear training as well. So I'm going to do that now just to demonstrate. These are some of the things I do when I'm working on a piece. Okay, so we'll take those 3 notes. Now I'm going to put it in F. It was in C. We're going to put it in F. The cool thing about these 3 notes when you go in the cycle is that you can start right where you ended. That will be the first note of the new key, right? So we're going to go G, B, C, and then we're going to go C, E, F. Okay? Now, I went C, E, F, and so that was, we were in F. Now, we're going to go to B flat. So we just start where we left off. Start right at the F. We're back home. Okay, so right there is a really nice exercise that you can get just from the first 3 notes of the piece. We've worked on articulation, we've worked on dynamics, we worked on hearing something in 12 keys, different registers of the horn. So this is part of a whole approach that I call high mileage. You want to get a lot of mileage for very little work, hopefully. You know, just take a small amount of notes or a small phrase and see how much value you can get out of that. So you want to work very efficiently. Okay, so that's a little separate exercise you can do at the very beginning of this piece with just those 3 notes. Let's talk about getting further into the piece. The next thing I want to tell you about is the note groupings, and this can be a little tricky if you're not used to it because they're not grouped the way they look on the page, on the written page. They're really like this, ba, ba, boo, da. So this is leading to the D. portion of the phrase is now finished, and we're moving forward from the and of one. So right here, we're in the second full measure. So it's a 4-note group, but it's not grouped by going 1 and 2 and. It starts at the and of 1. Okay, this is very important. So you're going to go and 2 and 3. Then the second group is going to be and 4 and 1. So you're arriving at beat 3. Okay, we'll call that the point of arrival. And you start to depart for the next point of arrival on the and of 3. So you hear that these sound complete. When I go, that feels like a complete idea. Then, that feels like a complete idea. If I were to play them the way they look on the page, which is eighth notes with a beam across the bottom of them, it would sound like this. And then, and that doesn't make as much sense to my ear. And it's not the way that I wrote it, the way that I heard it when I wrote the piece. Now, the very end phrase, sometimes I would change the length of that, so that might be 1 note shy of having the 4 notes, like it is in this case, okay? If it had all 4, I would have written that. But because I wanted to anticipate that last note, I did that. I eliminated one of the notes, okay? It still works the other way as well. Okay, now going forward, you can really feel these 4-note groupings, with the 3-note pickup. Okay, then. Okay, so. So when you put it all together, it feels like a very well-spoken sentence, that the groupings are right. Just as I'm saying this sentence, there's a way that I'm grouping the words. And if you've heard someone maybe who doesn't speak English as their primary language, they may group the words in an unusual way. So they may group the words in. See, that's much harder to understand. They may group the words in an unusual way. That's good grouping, okay? They may group the words in. That's not good grouping. So the same things that would apply to spoken language apply to the music as far as note grouping. So this is an important distinction. You could be counting the eighth notes properly and still not understand the grouping of the eighth notes within the line. And that's what's really going to make it flow. Okay? So, for example, I'll play it. I won't do the groupings. It feels very stiff like that. I'm going to play it again, counting it the same way, but doing the correct groupings. Notice it has a real smooth flow to it. Now I'm going to go on, and I'm going to put the pauses where they should be so that you can differentiate these little groupings within the eighth note line. It almost feels like a waltz, right? That's very good training for your ear. Because it lets you hear where the resolutions are occurring, okay? Now when I play it as eighth notes, 2, 3, 4, it feels good, okay? Okay, so keep that in mind. This applies to all of my etudes. They're all grouped with this ba-da-ba-da, ba-da-ba-da. Okay, so it starts on the and of 1, and 2, and 3, okay? And 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. And if you do that, and you can study Sonny Stitt solos, Stan Getz solos, Sonny Rollins, Charlie Parker, these groupings occur. And for that matter, you can go back and study like the Mozart clarinet concerto and all that stuff. It's these groupings that really make the difference as far as the smoothness of the line, okay? So, keep that in mind. That's just sort of across the board. And one thing you can do when you're practicing this also, instead of going top to bottom, trying to play the entire piece over and over again, that's not really an efficient way to work. You're better off breaking it down into separate phrases and get each phrase really solid before you go on, okay? So maybe we'll take that second phrase. Now you need to go a little slower, that's fine. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And see if you can get 5 in a row with no mistakes. This is what I call the 5-time rule, okay? So that'd be really good for consistency. So here's 1. 1. Just do one more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Do that with each phrase, okay? And that will really get it consistent. So when you do that with one phrase and then you do the next phrase, what you want to start doing is putting the phrases together. So it's almost like assembling a little puzzle. And as you get the separate pieces where they're solid and you're not going to have breakdowns within the phrase, then you start adding them together. Okay. So we're going just before letter B. To break this down a little bit, the piece started like this. And now moving forward at letter B, so it's basically the same idea, up an octave with an extra note in front. Okay? And then if we fast forward to the very end of the piece, now it's again, it ends just like it started. There's one extra note. We have an F in front. Okay? So this helps give the piece some kind of consistency, that it starts like that, it's like that in the middle with this theme. So there they are. That was the beginning, middle, and end of the piece. And so you hear that gives it a unifying quality, okay? That makes the piece really hold together well, okay? I'm going to go from letter B. And now this is a little bit tricky with the groupings because you're going to start on the D sharp on the downbeat of 3. I'm going to hold it a little bit. Okay? You can really hear how smoothly it's flowing. I'm going to play it in time now with those proper groupings. 1, 2. Okay, one thing I wanted to mention, when I did the slow version, I took an extra breath before the F sharp, but I would not really do that in performance if I was really playing it. Don't go like this. Don't breathe there because it'll break the phrase, okay? So when you play it, you got to take a good breath. It's going to be a long phrase. 1, 2. It makes it feel really like a complete idea when you don't take that extra breath before the low F sharp. Okay, moving on. That was slowed down so you can hear the grouping of the notes. And now I'm going to do it at regular speed. Okay? Same thing with that phrase. See if you can get 5 in a row with no mistakes. Okay? That's the next phrase. And then we're going to end with... And this is a very common sort of lick. We got an E minor to an A7 chord progression here. We're going right up to E minor, 1, 3, 5, 7. And the most important part of that whole thing is the D to the C sharp, the 7 to the 3rd. That's what really defines the E minor switching over to the A7. The fact that the D, which is 7 of E minor, drops a half step to resolve to the C sharp of A7. Okay? If you notice the way the line's constructed, every time I switch from one chord to the next chord, in this instance, the E minor to the A7, and then the D minor to the G7, I have a passing tone of an F sharp. I go. So, it's these half-step connections that make it sound really smooth. And then at the very end, So if I just play, oh, I forgot the B flat to the A. They're all half steps, okay? So there's the line, okay? Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial on Halsted Street, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you and seeing you post some videos of your work on this piece.